I have a few questions in here, but I like to mention that when I was meditating in the hall back there, I saw a lot of us not sitting in the right posture. We try to correct you by putting a cane to correct you, to remind you, but we don't want to do too much. Many people are not qualified to be sitting because your posture is not right. But I'm thinking that you may just come for one time or a couple of times, and we don't want to be so harsh. I don't think we'll really correct your posture unless we've seen you for quite a while in here. Some people it takes a long time to change. If you continue to do that, it's no good. But we'll find a way to do better, okay? As someone new to Buddhist way of life, where does one start? Well, this is the question that entails a lot of explanations. Probably, as I always mentioned, it takes about 3 semesters, at least 3 semesters in the university to give you, how does one start? But why don't we do it like this? We have 3 main courses that you have to take and you practice when you first start. What are these 3 courses? The one is morality. The second one is concentration. The third one is wisdom. In the Sanskrit language, sila, samadhi, and prajna. What do we mean by morality? If you are immoral, you already have, or you will be creating a lot of bad karma, which means that if you're not moral, you don't care, you just do what you want, you just, as long as you please your senses, you can kill, you can steal, you can lie, you can yell, you can curse. If you are immoral, what happened? Whatever bad causes that you have cultivated, you have germinated, all these bad effects will come out. Some immediately, some a little later, maybe 1 year later, 1 month later, maybe sometime 10 years later, 20 years later, or even as far as next life. So if you're always creating bad karma without morality, you'll be all covered with mental defilements and sufferings and tribulations and crimes and all that. How can you practice the Buddhist teaching? The first very important way is start with sila, start with observance of certain behavior. So certain behavior that you can do, certain behavior you cannot do. You cannot kill, you cannot commit sexual misconduct, you cannot lie, because all these things the Buddha mentioned to you generally would induce you to have sufferings. If you always have sufferings, how can you have the peace of mind to study, to practice? So where do you start? Start with morality. Start with learning about the sila, the precepts, what you should do according to the Buddhist teaching, what you should do and what you should not do. Can you start with that simple category? Take that course, we call it. And in conjunction with it, take the second course too. That is meditation. Because you don't create bad karma, but at the same time, to tranquilize yourself, you have a calm mind, and then with this calm mind and peaceful mind, you start to absorb wisdom, absorb the Buddhist teaching. So that meditation is a very important course. It's a prerequisite. Actually, sila is a prerequisite course for meditation. And meditation is a prerequisite course for wisdom. So all these 3 are prerequisites to go to the saintly enlightenment level. That is to simplify this question is this way. Have you taken the 3 refuges? Some people have been here for years and they have not taken the first sila. That is the 3 refuges. Refuges under the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Because they're still wandering at the doorsteps of the Buddhist teaching. They thought taking the 3 refuges, taking the refuge under the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, To them, it means being baptized, being forced into a club, paying a fee or something like that. It simply means you want to walk into that door of enlightenment. You want to start that spiritual search, a research into the spiritual side of life. You want to make that determination that you will do it. In anything, not until you have determination, you cannot take the first step. You cannot say, I want to be a university student, but you always end up in just the admissions office taking an application form and never fill it up. You have to fill up your application form, put in all the information in there, faithfully, sincerely, and honestly sign it, put a statement that you want to be a university student, want to receive the education, and then put in the application form. That's the 3 refuges, the ceremony of the 3 refuges. Have you taken it? So why don't I start like this? You are a starter. Take the 3 refuges first. How, where, when, why? You go up to Tom or somebody upstairs, they say, I want to take the 3 refuges. I want to be registered that I am determined to learn the Buddhist teaching. Not to say follow, I want to learn it and find out more about it and have that determination. Fill out that form to be a starter, and then we'll find a date when we'll actually carry out that sincere, faithful, and holy ceremony of taking the 3 refuges, where you have to stand in front of the Buddha, you say, I want to be registered. Dear Master, is it that all the asuras in the human realm are atrocious and competitive with hatred and revenge? No, asuras have different levels, and some people have a high level of atrocity and cruelty and domination, infatuation with power. In the history of civilization, we have, for example, Hitler. He always wanted to dominate. He wanted to dominate the whole world. He wanted to wipe out the Jewish civilization. He killed 6 million Jews by sending them off to the gas chambers. This is just another category for people who always want to be better than others. It does not mean that you don't strive for improvement. You don't necessarily have to be better than others to strive for improvement. So not all asuras are like that. Some are better. But I can tell you, sometimes a nice individual, a very nice individual, could be within that particular 1 hour, he became an asura. You were so tender to your wife. You love your kids so much. You're a good father at home. So I wouldn't say you were asuras, but you were in a job site the whole day and you got blamed by your supervisor. You got accused of doing something that you didn't do. You become so mad. And you build up that emotion in you and you couldn't get away. You've been pressurized. And you went home and your kids were watching television, your wife was cooking. And then your younger kid was playing a ball and it hit on your shoulders. And all of a sudden you get infuriated. You yell out. You release on your family members. In that particular moment, you are an asura. It doesn't have to be labeled as one. You have that asura spirit in you, waiting to be released. You have also that bodhisattva, compassionate instinct in you, where you help out somebody standing in the streets, stumble and fell, an old fellow, helpless, and you went forward to help him up and walk him home, call a taxi. You became a guardian angel. You become very compassionate in that moment. So one moment you're an angel, another moment you are a devil. We have that instinct. That's what we call karma, right? Don't labelize. We have both. What makes us rebirth? What makes us become alive in the first place? In other words, where do we come from in the first place? If you have the first place, that means you have the second place. You have the last place. If you always bind up your idea with, I have a first, I have a second, then you're always in the thinking of a limitation thinking. If you always think that I take a foot of space into the ground, I got a foot of space, and then I fill up the ground with 1 foot of soil, and then I lost that space. You're always in the thinking of losing and gaining. But that space in this has never lost, has never gained. It does not matter whether you take it up. It does not matter whether we claim it. The space is still there. So when you say rebirth, where does the first rebirth come from? It traced to very, very long time ago. We call it timeless. And even if the Buddha said, well, it comes 16 billion point 217 years ago, at that particular minute, at that particular second, how does it help you? You become more satisfied. Oh yeah, that is a certain beginning. There is 16.271250 seconds. That's where I started. How does that help you? Because we've been so habituated in thinking of the first. When you draw a circle and you say, where does the starting points come from? The starting point is the ending point. As a human limitation thinking, we're always thinking of a number. We're always thinking of a beginning. We're always thinking of an end. Negate your beginning. Negate your end. It's just like when the wave is moving by the wind, and you say, here, the water is blown up by the wind, that's the first time when the wave is born. Because the wind blows the water, that's the first time when the wave is born. And then the wave calms down, there's more wind, it gets back to the water. And you say, the wave dies, the wave disappears. The wave is born, the wave is dead. The wave says, stopped it, confused individual. I've never been born. For that reason, I've never died. I belong to the water. I'm water. Wave is just my form. How can something never been born dies? You want to know my first wave? How can I tell you? I'm not a wave, I'm water. Thank you so much for your compassion and teaching us wisdom. When we practice Buddhism, how do we know that we are on the right path? How do we know that we have made progress? Because it's not easy to ensure the extreme or mutual stuff. Thank you. How do you know something? We know something through various ways. The first way is we know something by direct contact of your senses. If I see Alan in here, I say, I know that's Alan. I won't say, I see Alan. That's not Alan. That is, oh, I don't know who he is. I know, I'm direct contact. I hear Alan speaks to me, that's the sound produced by Alan. So I have direct contact of my senses, then I know it's right, it's true that is Alan. That's by direct contact, right? Another way of knowing is what? By postulation. That means I don't need my senses. I don't need to really have this direct contact. If I see some smoke, from seeing the smoke that there's fire in there, I don't necessarily have to believe there's a fire. I don't need to know I actually see the fire because I know that's the fire, right? Another way of knowing it is through people or through sages I trust. I believe in him. The Buddha told me all these things. I believe in the Buddha. Jesus told me these things. I believe in Jesus. Confucius told me this thing. I believe. My dad is always an honest man. My dad told me that I have a granddad, but I have never seen my granddad. But I got to believe that he's true. Because my dad told me he has a father. I don't necessarily have to experience seeing my dad's father because I trust my dad. That's the source of trusting and knowing it. So through all this literature, through all the saints, people telling you all these, through your own analysis, your postulation, your thinking, through all these things work together, you know that's true. Unless you don't have these faculties, unless your mind is all confused, you're a lunatic, you cannot think properly, then whatever you see, whatever you hear is an illusion. You know whether it's right or wrong, unless you don't have any judgment at all. So how do you know that you're on the right path? Because all these saintly people told you. Because other than the Buddha, there are a lot of philosophers. Asanga, there is Nagarjuna, there is many others, these philosophers and these high monks and many of these enlightened people, they told me all this is the way to practice. If somebody told you Victoria is there, and Victoria has all these things, a parliament building and all these things, and you haven't been there, and someone trustworthy said, you take that ship from Nanaimo, and you do this, you pay your fee and all that, and after half an hour and a half, and then you'll get there. He gives you all the guidance on the way, and I have gone over there. I've seen that, but you haven't been there. If you follow this, you may get there. So he used an analysis and said, oh yeah, I should drive there, I should take this map, I should do that. Then you reach Victoria. Then you know that you go there. You don't necessarily have to be a Buddha to become the Buddha. Because there's so many ways to learn something. You have to use your own judgment. You have that judgment. What is wrong, what is right. Is the law of causality the same as dependent origination? Everything is dependent origination. Everything is the law of causality. They're all related. Is there a creator God according to the Buddha? No. You are your own creator of your own destiny. There's no creator God. You create everything in here.